Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Maninder Kaur and I welcome you to the session on academic writing skills, understanding assessments and writing effectively. So before we move ahead, I would like to acknowledge that Sydney Met campus is located on the unceded territory of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, who are the traditional owners of the land. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and we extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in Australia and Indigenous people globally who are presently studying, working, and contributing to Sydney Met. Okay, so let's look at academic writing skills. So for today's webinar, I will try to cover what academic writing actually is, what are the common types of assessments, how to understand an assessment before you start, how to find and use sources, and how to write in a way that's clear, structured, and academically strong. Okay, so let's begin by answering this question. Which of the following is not a feature of academic writing? Is it use of evidence from credible sources, or clear structure and logical organization, or analysis and critical engagement with ideas, or personal opinion presented without supporting evidence, or accurate referencing and citation? So the correct answer is D. So D, which is personal opinion presented without supporting evidence, is not a feature of academic writing, because at high level education, your ideas need to be supported by credible evidence. And the other options, A, B, C, E, are all the key features of academic writing. Okay, so academic writing is formal and professional in tone. It is clear and logically structured, so your ideas flow in a way that makes sense. It's evidence-based, which means your points are supported by credible academic sources. And it requires accurate referencing, so that you can acknowledge where your reference and ideas come from. But it is also more than just presenting information. It involves the elements of critical thinking. Now, what is critical thinking? Is it about criticizing everything that you read? No. Critical thinking does not mean criticism. It means going beyond the summary. It means you analyze, question, compare, and evaluate ideas. And instead of just saying what an author wrote, you actually explain whether you agree, how it compares with the other sources, and why it matters. What are the strengths, limitations, or implications of that idea that you are talking about? And because academic writing is more than just describing information, different higher education assessments ask you to use these skills in different ways. So let's look at the common types of assessments where academic writing is required. So these are your essay, report, annotated bibliography, literature review, and reflective writing that we are going to cover in this session. So I'm sure you have written some of these, right? Okay. So what is an essay? An essay is a common academic assessment where you present a position or argument on a topic and support it with an evidence. Its basic structure entails introduction, where you introduce the topic and your main argument or position. A body, where you develop your points in clear paragraphs using evidence and analysis. And the last is conclusion, where you summarize how your points answer the question or support your argument. So there's no set requirement for the number of paragraphs in an essay. The important point is that argument is logically developed through a series of well-structured paragraphs. Now coming to report. Report. So while essay argues a position in response to an issue and it draws conclusion about it, a report presents information, facts, and analysis about a problem and often suggests a solution. The different parts of report, as you can see, includes a title page, executive summary, table of contents, introduction, findings, discussion, recommendations, conclusion, reference list, and appendices. As you can see, it has clearly divided sections with numbers, numbered headings, and often subheadings or in bullets. So brief paragraphs and dot points are acceptable in reports so that reader could quickly extract information, and tables and figures are often included in a report as a way of showing information quickly and easily. Okay, a case study. Case study requires you to analyze a specific situation and discuss how its different elements relate to a theory, one or more theories. The case can refer to a real life or hypothetical event, organization, individual or group of people and or an issue. Depending upon your assignment, you will be asked to develop solutions to problems or recommendations for future action. Now let's look at annotated bibliography. An annotated bibliography is a list of information sources, for example, journal articles or book chapters on a particular topic with a reference accompanied by a brief commentary on each source, which is known as an annotation. So annotation includes summary of the source, including description of the main idea, purpose, or argument. It summarizes the content and key points of the reading that you're looking at, the overall findings of that reading, methodology, design of a research, if it is appropriate to the source, your evaluation of the source, like what are the strengths of that source, that reading. Are there any issues, any failings, any limitations? What is the overall significance of this reading to the field of the study? And what is the overall reference to your research or your topic? Reflection would include how you how does the source connect to your reading? How will it support your argument, background, or if it is contrary to your argument. So an annotated bibliography is a list of information sources, like we said, journal articles, book chapters, on particular topic with reference accompanied by a brief commentary on each source. Now coming to literature review. It's a common mistake for students to confuse literature review with annotated bibliography. A literature review is different from annotated bibliography. So literature review is basically a type of academic writing that provides an overview of existing knowledge in a particular field of research. It helps you to examine what different researchers have said about a topic. Unlike an annotated bibliography, which discusses each source or each author separately, the literature review compares, contrasts, and synthesizes ideas from multiple sources or authors under key emerging themes. So as you can see this literature review sample, it is centered around themes. For example, theme number 1 is importance of early mathematics learning. Theme 2 is educational disadvantage and inequality in mathematics learning. Theme 3 is barriers to teaching mathematics. And as you can see here, that within one theme, ideas from different authors or say different sources are compared and contrasted. Okay, now moving to reflective writing. So among these assessments that we have discussed, reflective writing is the one that values personal anecdotes. However, as an important form of academic writing, it still requires critical thinking and must connect personal experiences to relevant theories and concepts. So even though all these assessments are different, they all still rely on the same core academic skills, which are understanding the task, using credible sources, structuring ideas clearly, thinking critically, and referencing accurately. To ask you, what do you think are some of the common mistakes that students make when they first receive an assessment? Think about what are the common mistakes that you make. Is it about starting to write too quickly without understanding the task? B, procrastinating because the task feels overwhelming? Telling yourself, I still have plenty of time. That's again procrastinating. And then all of the above. So all of these are very common reactions to when you receive an assessment. You can start too quickly. Some of you may avoid starting, and some may assume that you have plenty of time. But in most cases, the real issue is not your ability. It's about the lack of a plan. Planning. What does planning does? Planning helps you to slow down, understand the task better, break it into smaller steps, and then begin with confidence rather than panic. So it is important that before you begin researching and writing your assessments, you spend sufficient time understanding all the requirements. So you have to check your Moodle or your unit outline for the assessment description or question, word count, required number or type of sources, reference style, then due date, and the rubric or marking criteria. Now, task words. Make sure that you have a clear understanding of what task word requires you to address. So what is your assessment like, or what are the expectations? So task words are key instruction words in an assessment question, which helps you to understand the expectations, such as analyze, describe, distinguish, compare, contrast. They tell you what the question is asking you to do. What are your lecturer's expectations from you? For example, if the question asks you to analyze, can you stop at just describing it? No, because the task words matter. So describe tells you to explain what it is. Analyze asks you to go beyond that, to break the topic into parts, look deeper at how it works, why it happens, how different factors are connected, and what it means or why it matters. For example, if your topic is youth homelessness, and if the question says describe youth homelessness, then you probably might define youth homelessness, outline its main features, list its common causes. But if the question asks you to analyze, then you might want to examine. The right thing to do would be to examine why youth homelessness happens, explore how factors like family conflict, poverty, care experience are connected to explain the patterns, impacts, and significance. So your marking rubric is another important document to look at before you begin at your assessment. It outlines how your assessment is marked and can be used as a checklist to make sure that you included all the information required. So that's why planning is not just about time management. It is also about understanding exactly what the question is asking you before you actually start writing. But even if you understand the task, many students still ask, okay, where do I begin? So there's a very simple planning strategy like concept mapping, which can really help you. Once you know what the question is asking, Concept mapping helps you brainstorm ideas, see connections between them, and organize them before you start writing. As you can see, a concept map is a simple visual planning tool. You place your topic or question in the center, and then you branch out key ideas, themes, causes, examples, or evidence. This helps you see what you already know, what you still need to research, and how your ideas can be grouped into paragraphs or themes. Your concept map shows you what ideas or themes you want to explore. The next step is to engage with the literature and find relevant academic sources that help you explore those ideas and provide evidence for your response. You might have used academic sources like journal articles, textbooks, reports, or websites. Now, which sources you need to avoid or use carefully? Random blogs, Wikipedia as cited source, AI-generated references, unverified websites. Even if you are required to use them, make sure that you cite them so that the reader or your lecturer knows where you have drawn the information from. So now let's look at how to locate academic sources. An easy way to remember the key checks for a credible source is the CRAP test. So where C stands for currency, is the source up to date? R is relevance. Is the source relevant to your research? Authority. Where is the source published? Who is the author? Are they considered reputable and trustworthy in their field? Accuracy. Is the source supported by an evidence? Purpose. What is the source informing you about? And is it suitable for academic use? Now moving on to academic skills. Now there are many academic skills, but for today's webinar, I want to focus on two core skills that can immediately improve your writing, which is paraphrasing and paragraphing. Now these two skills help you use your sources appropriately and present your ideas clearly. Paraphrasing means taking an idea from a source and expressing it in your own words while still keeping the original meaning. It is an important academic skill because it shows you that you understand the source, and it helps you avoid overusing direct quotes and reduces the risk of plagiarism. But even when you paraphrase, you still need to cite the source. In simple terms, paraphrasing means I understand what the author is saying, and now I can explain that same idea in my own academic voice. A useful trick for paraphrasing is read, hide, write, show. Okay, where you read the original sentence carefully and make sure you've understood that. Hide, cover or move away from the original text. Write, you write the idea in your own words from your memory. And show, you look back at the original source and check whether you have kept the meaning without copying the wording too closely. Now, paragraphing is about organizing your ideas clearly so that your reader can follow your thinking. In academic writing, a good paragraph should do a job. That is, make one point, support it with evidence, explain it, and connect it back to the question. One small but important point in academic writing is being consistent with your spelling, especially when it comes to British and American English. Please note, in Australian universities, we follow British English, so you have to take care of that. Academic integrity is a crucial aspect of academic writing. Academic integrity is violated when students intentionally or unintentionally plagiarize. Plagiarism means submitting a work that is not your own without acknowledging, citing, or referencing the original source of the work. That is known as plagiarism. It doesn't matter whether you do it accidentally or on purpose, whether you change the words to make them your own or simply copy and paste. when you are using another person's thoughts and ideas or evidence generated from their research, you must refer the source material. You must do a referencing. Then recycling or resubmitting the work, which means that you are resubmitting someone's work that has already been assessed without your lecturer's permission. Collusion involves engaging in illegitimate cooperation with one or more students to complete your work. Fabricating information is that when you're making up information for your research-focused assessment. Now, one of the most important ways to practice academic integrity is referencing. Referencing or citations are found in two places in your assessment, as in-text citations and in the reference list. You can see an example of how citations look or appear in the in-text and reference list. Also, practicing academic integrity means that AI is used ethically. So using AI is not forbidden, but using AI unethically is forbidden. AI is not used ethically when it writes your entire assessment. So to ensure that you're following academic integrity, ensure that you do not use AI to replace your ideas, your critical thinking, to fabricate references, to provide unverified information, and use AI without transparency. So all your assessments, you have to fill a cover sheet where you actually mention how you have used AI. You are encouraged to check Sydney Met guidelines to know more about the policies and procedures related to academic integrity. Okay, so another aspect of an effective academic writing is to make sure that you leave enough time between your drafts to rework on your language and ideas. Please remember, assignments are dramatically improved by editing and proofreading. Having time for this allows you to see your writing with fresh eyes and makes your editing more effective. Editing looks at aspects as, have I answered the question accurately? Do I have enough credible, scholarly, supporting evidence? Proofreading then looks at, are my spelling and grammar accurate? Are my sentences sensible? Are they complete? Do they make sense? So let's close this session now with the key takeaways. So the first would be, understand the task before you start. Check the task words, rubric, word count, due date. Then plan before you write. Break the task into smaller steps and organize your ideas clearly. Then use credible sources and reference them correctly. Academic writing needs evidence and accurate citation. Please remember that. Write clearly and academically. Paraphrase in your own words and build clear, purposeful paragraphs. And then proofread before you submit. Check spelling, grammar, formatting, and references carefully before submission. So thank you. These are the references that I used to prepare for this webinar. I hope this webinar would be useful for you to preparing your assessments more efficiently. Thank you.